They looked at me like I owed them something. Not in the way puppies beg for food or attention. No, it was different. There was a kind of silent demand in their eyes. Oh wait, I still can't explain it. Maybe I shouldn't have brought them home. Maybe I should have walked away the moment I heard that sound. But I didn't. It started a week ago, on a Thursday morning. Late May. I remember because the lilacs had just bloomed, and the air outside the house was thick with the scent of wet soil and fresh pollen. I'd just moved into my uncle's old place, deep in the backwoods, the kind of place where the mailbox is 100 yards from the front door, and the nearest neighbor lives a 5-minute drive down a gravel road. I barely knew the man, but when he passed, he left me this property. It felt like a reset I didn't know I needed. That morning, I was fixing the shed roof when I heard it, a high-pitched whimper. Faint, almost like it didn't want to be heard. I stopped, held my breath, and listened. There it was again. It was coming from behind the trees, from that decrepit, half-collapsed house just off the property line. I'd seen it before, boarded windows, caved-in porch, roof eaten by time and weather. Something about that sound got under my skin. I told myself it was probably a stray dog, maybe a raccoon. But curiosity pulled at me. So I grabbed a flashlight, slipped on my boots, and walked over. The door was hanging open, barely held by rusted hinges. Inside, the smell hit me first: mold, rot, and something fouler, like old animal waste. I stepped over broken glass and crumbling furniture, shining my light around. The house was silent, empty, until I heard it again, that whimper. Closer now. It was coming from beneath the floorboards. I found a broken section of the floor in what must have been the living room. The boards were warped and loose. I crouched, pried one up, then another, and there, in the dark gap between the joists, were 2 tiny creatures. At first, I thought they were puppies. Small, curled up against each other, shaking. Filthy. One of them looked up at me, and I swear, its eyes didn't match its size. They were older, wilder. I reached in slowly. They didn't move. I wrapped them in my flannel jacket and carried them back, heart thudding. They didn't make a sound the whole walk home. Not even a whimper. Just those eyes watching. Back at the house, I cleared out a space in the laundry room, laid out some towels, and gently placed them down. I brought a bowl of water. They didn't touch it. They didn't sniff around or explore like most puppies would. They just sat there, huddled, watching. I tried to feed them bits of cooked chicken. One took it into its mouth, chewed, then spit it out. The other didn't even try. I sat there for a while, unsure what to do. My gut told me something wasn't right, but I couldn't just leave them there. Later that evening, I bathed them in the sink. Mud and something sticky peeled off their fur. Underneath, they were surprisingly healthy. A few scratches, but nothing serious. Their paws were bigger than I expected. So were their ears. Still, I told myself they were just a strange mix. Maybe part husky, maybe something else. Then I looked into their eyes again. The kitchen light hit them just right, and for a moment, they glowed. Not in a magical way. I'm not saying anything supernatural, but the way wild animal eyes catch the light. Reflected. Sharp, intelligent, ancient. I froze. They didn't blink, didn't flinch, just stared. Something inside me clenched. That quiet kind of fear you feel when you realize you've underestimated something. I tried to shake it off. Told myself I was being dramatic. Maybe I just hadn't been around dogs in a long time. That night, I moved their makeshift bed to the corner of the living room so I could keep an eye on them. I laid awake on the couch, pretending to read, really just watching. They never laid down. They just sat and watched. The next morning, I found them exactly where I'd left them, still sitting, still silent, still watching. The towels beneath them were untouched. The bowl of water still full. They hadn't moved an inch. I knelt beside them and whispered, "You guys gonna do anything but stare?" One of them blinked. The other didn't. That was the first time I really questioned what I'd brought into my house. I tried again with food, ground turkey this time. I put the plate down, stepped back, gave them space. After a few minutes, one of them sniffed it, then nudged the other. They ate, slowly, mechanically, like they were performing a task, not feeding hunger. I went out to the hardware store later that day, about 20 minutes into town. Picked up puppy pads, a small pen, and a couple of toys. When I got back, they were still in the same spot, but the plate was licked clean. Progress, I thought. That evening, I sat with them on the floor. I tossed a soft plush squirrel between them. Nothing. I tried rolling a ball. No interest. They didn't bark, didn't whine, just followed the movement with their eyes. Calm. Measured. They weren't curious. They weren't playful. They were calculating. I started calling them temporary names just to have something to say out loud. The slightly smaller one, with the darker coat, I called Ash. The bigger one, with a silvery streak along his back, I named Ridge. They didn't react to the names, but at least it made them feel more like something I could understand. 2 days passed like that. They began moving around the house at night. I'd wake to the sound of their claws on the hardwood, faint and precise, like they were mapping the place. On the third day, I found the back door slightly open. I froze. I always lock it. I checked the latch, still locked, but the bolt was old and weak. Had they pushed it open? Ash and Ridge were in the kitchen, sitting by the window. I didn't know how they'd gotten there. I hadn't heard a thing. That same morning, I found tracks behind the shed. Large ones. Too big for the pups. 4 toes. Heavy stride. Not a dog. I crouched, ran my fingers over the prints. Fresh. Maybe from last night. My first instinct was a coyote, but these were bigger. I snapped a picture and sent it to an old buddy of mine, Travis, who used to track animals for forestry services. He texted back within 5 minutes. Those are wolf prints, man. Big ones. Maybe 100 pounds. You sure you're safe out there? I looked over my shoulder. The house loomed behind me. Inside, Ash and Ridge. I didn't respond. Later that day, I decided to let them into the backyard for some fresh air. The sun was out, and I figured they needed space. I opened the sliding door, stepped outside, and watched as they stepped out onto the porch. Not ran, stepped. No hesitation. No sniffing the air. Just movement, like they'd done it 1,000 times. They went straight to the tree lean and stood still. I followed slowly. Called out to them. Hey, Ash, Ridge, stay close. They didn't turn, but Ridge suddenly darted forward. Just a few feet. Then he froze, staring. I jogged up behind him and saw what had caught his eye. A chicken. One of the neighbors. It must have wandered through the back trail. Before I could say a word, Ridge lunged. I shouted, no, and bolted after him. The chicken let out a single panicked squawk before I grabbed Ridge by the scruff mid-pounce. He snarled. Low. A sound that didn't belong in something his size. Ash came running up behind us, not barking, not whimpering, just watching. Ridge struggled in my grip, strong, far too strong for a pup. I hauled him back to the house, heart hammering. Once inside, I locked the door and sat down, Ridge still in my arms, breathing hard. He didn't look angry. He looked disappointed. That night, I couldn't sleep. I moved their bed back into the laundry room, closed the door, and left a light on. Around midnight, I heard something. Scratching. Not from the room. From outside. Window level. I grabbed the flashlight, heart racing. Slowly walked to the living room, flicked off the inside light, and peered through the window. There, on the far edge of the hill, silhouetted against the moonlight, was a figure. Massive. Still. Watching. A wolf. Not running. Not pacing. Just standing. I stood frozen, eyes locked with its shape. It didn't move. Behind me, a soft sound. I turned. Ash and Ridge were sitting in the hallway, facing the same direction. The morning after I saw the wolf on the hill, I drove into town. There was this small vet clinic just past the gas station, the kind that's half animal hospital, half social hub for farmers and dog owners. I brought Ridge with me, tucked in a blanket, figuring it was time to get some real answers. Dr. Carter was in her late 50s, wiry and no-nonsense. She took one look at Ridge and froze. You said this was a dog? She asked. I thought so. Got him from a house near my place. Looked abandoned. She raised an eyebrow. This isn't a dog, Han. This is a wolf pup. You see those paws? That head shape? The set of the ears? You've got yourself something wild. I stared at Ridge, who sat calmly on the exam table, eyes fixed on Carter like he understood every word. You sure? I asked. 100%. Probably 5, maybe 6 weeks old. Male. Looks healthy, which is weird if you say you found him alone. Wolves don't leave their pups. Not unless something went wrong. The words didn't fully land until I was back in the truck. Wolf pup. I thought of Ash back at home. Of their silence. Their eyes. The way Ridge had moved after that chicken. Like a hunter. I started wondering if I'd made a huge mistake. On the way back, I took the long route. A back road that runs behind the forest. Just needed time to think. That's when I saw it. About 30 feet off the road, down in a gully, something white caught my eye. I pulled over, climbed down, and almost threw up. A deer. Or what was left of it. It was torn apart. Not just eaten, Ripped open, ribs snapped, legs twisted. There were no signs of bullets or arrows. No clean kills, just raw violence. Something had killed it fast and with power. The tracks nearby were all wrong. Not just one animal. Multiple. Heavy. Fast. I got back in the truck, heart pounding. Ash met me at the door when I got home. Just standing there, staring. I couldn't help but look at her differently now. Later that evening, I was chopping wood out back when someone called my name. Eli, that you? It was Greg, my closest neighbor. Lived a couple properties down, kept chickens and goats. Wore a battered red cap like it was glued to his head. Yeah, I said, wiping my hands. What's up? He walked over, looking uneasy. You didn't hear anything last night, did you? What kind of anything? Screaming. From the woods. My goats went nuts. Found a dead rabbit on the porch this morning, half chewed. Not like any dog did it. I swallowed hard. I saw a wolf near the ridge. A big one. Greg nodded slowly. You heard about the pack up north, right? Rangers say they moved closer this season. Maybe the fires pushed them. I don't know. I shook my head. I've got pups. Found them in a busted house. Thought they were dogs. He went quiet. You didn't hear about those researchers, did you? What researchers? Couple weeks back. Wildlife people. Said they were tracking a tagged female. Lost her signal somewhere near here. She had a litter. They were trying to find the den. My stomach turned. You think they're looking for the pups? Greg shrugged. Could be. I'd keep that quiet, though. You know how people get about wolves. That night, I didn't sleep much. I kept checking the windows, listening. Around 2 in the morning, I realized the house was too quiet. I got up. Ash was gone. I checked the doors, still locked. Windows closed. Panic hit me like a wave. I grabbed a flashlight and jacket, then ran outside. The woods swallowed the light. I moved fast, heart racing, calling her name even though I knew it was useless. 10 minutes in, I saw it, movement up ahead. I turned off the light, crept closer. There, in a small clearing, lit by moonlight, was Ash. She wasn't alone. Lying beside her was a large, gray wolf. Injured, blood on its side, breathing heavy. Ash sat perfectly still, not afraid, not tense. Just there. She turned her head and looked at me, not with guilt or fear, just calm awareness. I stepped forward. Slowly. The adult wolf didn't move. Its eyes fluttered open, met mine, then closed again. I knelt, unsure what to do. Ash moved closer to the adult, pressed her head to its neck. It let out a low, raspy sound. That's when I realized this wasn't some random encounter. This was family. They weren't pups anymore. It had been just over 3 weeks since I found them. But in that time, Ash and Ridge had doubled in size. Their shoulders were wider, their legs longer. Ridge's once soft growls had turned into deep, guttural rumbles that made my spine tighten. Ash didn't play, didn't curl up near me anymore. She started sleeping by the back door, ears perked, like she was waiting for something to call her. I still fed them, still checked their paws, their coats. But they barely let me touch them now. And they no longer watched me with curiosity. They watched with distance, like I was something foreign. That week, Ridge snapped at me. It wasn't a real attack, more of a warning. I'd gone to move a bowl he hadn't finished, and before I knew it, he turned, teeth bared. I froze. He backed off on his own, but the message was clear. I sat on the porch that night with a beer in my hand and a storm in my chest. I kept asking myself what the hell I was doing. These weren't pets. They weren't mine. But the thought of just pushing them out the door felt wrong. The woods were full of dangers, traps, roads, people with guns. I'd grown up thinking wolves were villains. But looking at these two, I saw something else. Something sad, proud, and alone. The next morning, only Ridge was in the house. Ash didn't come when I called. I searched for over an hour before I found her limping back from the woods. Her side was matted with blood. Not her own, but her front leg was gashed bad. I rushed toward her. She growled, not at me, but at the pain. I wrapped her in a towel, carried her inside. It took everything I had to clean the wound. She let me, barely. When I finally sat back, soaked in sweat, I checked her eyes. They were glassy, but locked onto mine. She didn't look scared. She looked betrayed. Later that day, Greg showed up. No warning. Just his pickup pulling into the drive like a thunderclap. He stepped out, hand on his hip, eyes burning. One of your damn animals came onto my land, he said. Found prints. Saw blood. I kept calm. She's hurt. Bad. Whatever happened, She didn't do it. I don't care, he snapped. You're keeping wolves. You know what that means out here? What if a kid comes through the trail? What if they go after livestock again? They're not killers. He laughed, hard and mean. That's what they all are. Doesn't matter if you feed, kibble, or steak. Sooner or later, instinct kicks in. You better do something about them before someone else does. He drove off, gravel kicking up behind his tires. I stood there long after the sound faded. That night, I loaded the shotgun. I didn't plan to use it, but the shots had started echoing in the woods more and more. Just last evening, I heard one close. Then another. Short burst. Then silence. It was like a message. Ash didn't eat that night. Ridge paced the hallway like a shadow. I sat at the table, hands clenched, thinking. I couldn't keep them locked up, but I couldn't release them to be hunted. I remembered what Dr. Carter had said. Wolves don't leave their pups. Not unless something goes wrong. Maybe it wasn't wrong. Maybe they'd been taken, torn from their world, from something they still remembered. Maybe that's what I was now, the wrong place. The next day, I watched them from the porch. Ridge stood at the edge of the woods, nose lifted. Ash lay in the grass, licking her bandaged leg, ears twitching at every sound. And me? I sat with my coffee, shotgun by the door, wondering how to undo something that had never really been mine to control. Just before dusk, I heard the sound again, distant, echoing through the hills. Howling. One long, mournful note. Then another. Then three together. Ash's head snapped up. Ridge froze. I stood, watched. Then, slowly, Ridge stepped into the trees. Ash limped after him, slow but determined. I didn't stop them. I just watched until the brush swallowed them whole. And then I went back inside and waited. The morning after they left, I sat on the porch for hours. Coffee went cold in my hand. The sun climbed up behind the trees. I didn't move. I kept waiting to see them come back, just trotting out of the brush like nothing had changed. But the woods stayed still. Just birds, wind, and the creak of old wood beneath me. By noon, I couldn't take it. I packed a small bag, some food, extra water, gauze in case Ash was still hurting. I slung the bag over my shoulder, grabbed my walking stick, and stepped into the woods. I didn't know what I expected. Some kind of goodbye? Closure? What I found was silence. I followed a game trail that curved around the hill, past the clearing where I'd first seen the adult wolf with Ash. Nothing. No tracks. No howls. No broken branches. Just empty. I went deeper. By late afternoon, I found a place that felt right. A wide clearing near the stream, moss-covered rocks, a bit of sunlight breaking through the trees. I sat down, unwrapped the food, and waited. Eventually, I whispered their names. Once. Then again. Nothing answered. I left the food near the stream and walked home before dark. That night, I didn't sleep. I kept picturing them alone, cold, hunted, wondering if they understood what I was doing, if they thought I abandoned them, or worse, if they felt betrayed. But I knew I couldn't pull them back into my world. Not anymore. Not without breaking something essential in them. 2 nights later, I heard it again. The howl. Not one, but many. Long, low, echoing through the hills behind the house. I stepped outside, barefoot, just a flannel wrapped around me. The moon was nearly full. I stood in the middle of the yard, heart beating so loud I could feel it in my throat. The howling stopped. Then, silence. Complete, heavy silence. I turned and went back inside. And that was the last time I heard them. A week passed. I tried getting back to normal. Fixing the porch steps, trimming the hedge, chopping wood. But everything felt hollow. Like I was just moving through a version of life with the sound turned down. I didn't hear from Greg. Didn't want to. I avoided the back trail, avoided looking at the tree line too long. But on the 7th day, something in me shifted. I grabbed my pack again, same as before. Took the trail past the ridge, crossed the stream, climbed the hill behind the old logging road. I followed instinct more than direction. That's when I saw them. Far across a valley, maybe 300 yards away, standing at the edge of a clearing, a pack. 7, maybe 8 wolves. All alert, tall, glowing in the morning light. And in the middle, 2 smaller figures. Not pups anymore, but not quite full-grown. Ridge was unmistakable. That silver streak down his spine caught the light like a knife. Ash stood beside him, healed, proud. She lifted her head and looked straight across the valley. I couldn't tell if she saw me, but I liked to believe she did. No one moved. The moment stretched like a thread between us. Then, slowly, The pack turned and disappeared into the trees. Gone. I stood there a long time. No tears. Just that tight feeling in my chest that comes when something real ends. I don't know if I did the right thing. I still don't. Some mornings, I think I hear them. A rustle in the woods, a shadow between the trees. But when I go out to look, there's nothing. Just the wind. Maybe they're gone for good. Or maybe I just stopped letting myself see them. Either way, I'll never forget those eyes looking up at me in that broken house. That first silent promise I didn't realize I was making. And how, in the end, I had to break it. Because you can't hold on to what was never yours. You can only try to let it go with grace.